Within this video, I'm going to show you two different ways of working with your data that can be really helpful if you are trying to get your data ready to then be presented in, say, a Word document or a PowerPoint slide. And so the two options that we'll be talking about are splitting text and concatenate. And these are basically kind of counter to each other. So splitting text, this is going to allow us to take text within a column and split it into two different columns. Whereas concatenate is going to allow us to take text from two or more different columns and put it into one column. And so let's start with splitting text. So you see here in my mock data set, I've added a new column called Order of Conditions, where we have for each individual, or pretending like they did a within subject study, and we have whether or not they got the control condition first and then the experimental condition, or if they received the experimental condition first, followed by the control condition. And so I have this all together in one column, but let's say for some reason I want to separate this out so it's two different variables that maybe will help me in being able to analyze or summarize the data in a certain way. What I would do is I'm going to take this data and copy and paste it into a new column so that I can preserve what's here and then manipulate this new data. And then I'm going to highlight this new column and go to Data and Text to Columns. And this is then going to give me some options that are going to help Excel read what's in this column and then appropriately split it into two new columns. And so you can see here that I've got two different options on the first screen. One is delimited, and that is basically indicating to Excel that there is something in between the different pieces of data that would be easy for Excel to read and know where to split. And in this case, I purposely entered my data with columns in between the two conditions so that it would be easy for Excel to say, okay, the two pieces of data are split by a comma, and then that's how I'm going to split this into two columns. You could use other things like tabs or semicolons. If you have data that's a fixed width, so let's say you have two different numbers that are 3 digits each, that would maybe be a good option for fixed width, because then you could just kind of split after that certain fixed width. Then that's an easy indicator for Excel. But in this case, we're going to pick delimited because that's the best choice for our data. We're going to say next, and we're going to tell Excel that the comma is what it needs to look for. So you can see that's the original data. Once it senses that comma within each cell, it's going to split based on that into two different columns. But we have other options that we can use too, and it really just depends on how your data are entered. Kind of what you're working with is what you choose here. Then we would say next, and we can then have any other formatting options. If it's important to let Excel know that we want it as text or date, this would be the place to do it, and we can check and make sure everything looks good here. And then we could say finish, and now as you can see, Excel automatically splits the data into two different columns. And so now we can rename this as first condition and second condition, and there we go. And so now to use concatenate, we would use this if we wanted to take two or more different pieces of data and put it together into a single cell. And this can be really useful if you are getting ready to kind of report your data within a Word document or a PowerPoint, and you either want to be able to report individual summary statistics like means and standard deviations within a text or within a table. This is a really nice way to kind of save yourself some time and also save yourself from potential human error that can be involved in transcribing the data in your Excel file onto these other formats. And so here you can see I have some summary data here. I have for the age variable, the mean age for males versus females, as well as the standard deviation. And I just pulled this directly from the information we have over there. And so typically when you're reporting these statistics, you would maybe do something where you'd have the mean, and then you'd report the standard deviation in parentheses following the mean. And again, you could just do that, transcribing. We can use a shortcut to make this easier, and this is really great, especially if you have a lot of means and standard deviations that you want to be able to put together in a table. And so we can, in a new cell, choose concatenate. And then we tell Excel what we want to put together. So I'm going to choose the value for the mean and the value for the standard deviation. And you can see once I hit enter or return, it's basically mashed those two values together. So this isn't yet what we want, right? This kind of did it, but it's not entirely right or helpful at the moment. So we can do a little more to make it a little better. So what we can do is manipulate this formula a little more so that we not only have these two terms being mashed together, but we're also inserting a space in between them. And so you can see I added a comma, a quotation mark, a space, and another quotation mark, and then a comma. And so that's basically telling Excel, put together the data from this cell, a space, and then the data from this cell. And you can see when I hit return, that's what we get. We get the data from the first cell, a space, data from the second cell. So we're getting there, but this isn't quite how we want it to look. Now we can enter more. We can add an open parentheses next to the space within this text value. And then we can also add a close parentheses. And now that's going to put all of those things together. And that's looking a lot better, right? The one last thing that we need to do here is fix the decimal places, because as you can see, they're kind of all over the place, and we want them to be more consistent. And if we just do the format option here, where we highlight these and say, just show me one decimal place, that actually doesn't change anything over here because we're not actually changing the values, we're just changing how they appear. So within our concatenate formula, we actually want to nest one more function, one more option here, and that's the round option, where we would say round this value to one decimal place and close our parentheses. And we can say the same here, round this value to one decimal place. And then that's going to make things look a lot better over here, right? And we could do 2 decimal places if we want to do that. You've got kind of options there, but either way, it kind of helps you to streamline. And within the Word document, if there's a 0 on the end of that, Excel won't show it, so you would have to add that in. But we'll go back to just showing one decimal place here. And so now we can easily just copy and paste this, and we've got it now specific to this data too. And that's going to be in a really nice format that then we can just copy and paste into other documents when we're reporting our data.